a report came out earlier this week claiming that Lane Kiffin had been issued an ultimatum by Ole Miss saying, hey, we need to know by next week, Egg Bowl week, when you take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, if you are staying or if you are going now. And, I thought that was kind of interesting because, A, how the hell do you plan to enforce that ultimatum if you're Ole Miss, right? Like, if he doesn't give you an answer by next Friday, are you going to fire him? No, he's the best thing that's ever happened to Ole Miss football. So, no, that's not going to happen. On the flip side, I'm sure Ole Miss folks are getting a little frustrated right now because Lane Kiffin is the best thing that's ever happened to Ole Miss football. He's being courted by LSU. He's being courted by the University of Florida. It has not been openly reported that he's being courted by Penn State, but let's keep it a buck. It's not exactly a huge coaching pool candidacy right now, so I assume he would at least get a phone call. Everybody wants the guy. Lane Kiffin went from a cat that was coaching at FAU, FIU, WTFU. I don't even remember what university 7 years ago, to now the hottest coaching prospect in the game, and Ole Miss just wants an answer. So with all of that being said, it's very interesting. Lane Kiffin was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday and said that there has been no ultimatum. He doesn't know where that rumor came from. He said, like I said, man, we're having a blast. The last couple of times that Lane Kiffin has been asked publicly to comment on LSU, Florida, etc., he's done a wonderful job of not saying I'm going anywhere while also not saying I'm not going anywhere. And sure, I get it. Like, it's a leverage move. Maybe you can get even more money out of Ole Miss. Indiana just gave Curt Cignetti a $96 million contract. He's probably thinking, well, if Indiana can do it, so the hell can Ole Miss. But the whole thing is interesting, Brad, not just because of the Ole Miss angle, the Lane Kiffin angle, Florida, LSU. It's interesting because it feels to me, when we are looking at, I believe now 14 Power 4 level jobs open and at least one more or two more coming open at the conclusion of the season, as many as 16 top level football jobs coming open, Lane Kiffin is obviously the biggest domino to fall for everybody else to start to scramble to find the next guy. And here we are with exactly and precisely zero answers or hints as to what is happening next. This whole thing kind of has a tentacle on every single potential or definitely open college football job around the entire landscape. Buddy, this is like the best bro soap opera we have seen play out in a very long time, and I'm here for it.
I am too. Just go ahead and have a camera on him at all times. I mean, it is a must-see reality TV playing out here on a daily basis here in the SEC. I mean, inevitably, it seems like he's going to wind up at LSU, right? Oh, the old governor's going to hike up his plans, and golly gee, I got to go out and spend some money on that dude from Mississippi. I mean, when you have the governor involved, and that's kind of how Louisiana's jam is, they're going to be able to back up the truck. They probably have a deeper purse, more money in the coffers there by comparison to Ole Miss. And I think Kiffin is playing this absolutely perfectly. I mean, would he go Northern Mason-Dixon line and play, the card and go to Penn State in the Big Ten? That's a possibility. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to remain in the dirty South. And I think he's going to make that trek eastward. It's not a very far drive. As a result, or westward, I should say, know your directions there, Evans, and wind up in Baton Rouge. So, there's a possibility he goes to Florida. I think that is very much on the table, but, let's, call a spade a spade. I think Kiffin is a bit of a glory hound. He likes the attention. He likes the bright lights. He likes hugs from the pretty ladies. That's evidenced by what transpired accidentally with the 80s wife. But I don't think he's going to be in Oxford here in short order. Again, I think he's going to make the short trek west to Baton Rouge and be the new head coach of LSU because the money is going to be downright irresistible.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I think the wild card factor in this is. The wild card factor is how much money Ole Miss can come up with and is willing to part with. I think and I believe I said this on your show as a guest, either the night of or the night after Curt Cignetti signed his contract. And the thought I had was, if Indiana can come off a $96 million deal, if Indiana can make Curt Cignetti the second or third highest paid coach in college football, I think Ole Miss can do the same thing. I mean, Ole Miss is sitting on, yes, Indiana has Big Ten money, sure. There's only one place that has more than Big Ten money, and that's SEC money. I mean, it's just they've got that resource there. On top of that, now in fairness, I come from the Florida Panhandle, so I come from the Deep South. I got a lot of Ole Miss fans that are in my circle. And I will tell you that I've got people in my life directly, like shake hands buddies, that are Ole Miss people who have said, I haven't given much or I haven't given anything, and I am in to make it happen if that's what it takes to keep Lane Kiffin. Like, the Rebels are pumped up about keeping Lane Kiffin there. You know, there's the rumor going around, and obviously with the lawsuit or threat of it of Brian Kelly, because, yeah, of course, Brian Kelly wants his whole buyout. Like, LSU saying, we want to figure out how to not give the guy we fired his whole buyout is like the funniest effing thing that's happened in college football all year. But the belief, the rumor going around is that the majority of the buyout from Brian Kelly, and the reason LSU wants to try to decrease the buyout, is because one guy, and granted, LSU is a hell of a lot bigger than Ole Miss is, but Ole Miss has got some alumni with some old money behind it. The rumor is one guy came out of the woodworks and said, I will fork over the lion's share of Brian Kelly's buyout if you guys will pull the trigger on getting him out of Dodge ASAP. If there was one guy willing to do that. And then at Penn State, again, I don't know how much stock to put into this, but the rumor at Penn State was that potentially a corporate sponsor was willing to fork over the majority of James Franklin's buyout. Now, keep in mind, when a coach is fired, that coach is obligated to look for work, and the buyout is usually decreased by whatever the salary from the next school is going to be. And there was a lot of confidence that if James Franklin left Penn State, like, he would get another Power 5 job. Maybe not the level of prestige of Penn State, but somebody wanted him. Well, step in the Virginia Tech Hokies, who probably won't have to pay James Franklin a ton because they just have to offset some of the salary. And he's probably perfectly happy if he has a check that says Virginia Tech and a check that says Nittany Lions on it hitting the bank account every single week. But the belief is, if those schools have that much money coming from such a small demographic, and if the Indiana Hoosiers are able to come off of enough money to make Curt Cignetti the second or third highest paid coach in college football starting next year, if you're Ole Miss, like, maybe you can't compete with LSU and maybe you can't compete with Florida, but you can compete with everybody else. And I agree with your take, Brad, on Lane Kiffin is a glory hound and he loves the attention. And hell, I don't blame him. Look at me. No, every job I do involves a camera and a microphone. I'm not hating on the guy for it. What I am saying is he is currently actively right now getting that nationally at Ole Miss, Brad, with about 30% of the pressure on him to thrive as he would. He shows up to LSU. He's got like 6 games to have it figured out. He shows up to Florida. He's got like 12 games to have it figured out. At Ole Miss, if he gets them to 10-2 every year, they might change the name of Oxford, Mississippi to Kiffin, Mississippi, if he just keeps them in a playoff hunt.
Yeah, they're going to build him a statue outside the stadium. I mean, you're totally right. It's like, what is his end game goal? That's the question that I would ask him publicly, privately. Anyway, you know, we're built up to a bar. It doesn't really matter to me. That's what Lane Kiffin internalizes, and he's probably going to be asking himself the same question. What do I ultimately want to achieve in my coaching career? You know, obviously a guy that dabbled in the NFL unsuccessfully there with the Raiders back in the day. Now he's, been reborn under this renaissance down there in the SEC. And you're right. The expectations would be sky high. They'd be stratospheric if he wound up in Baton Rouge with that, and just crazy fan base and the high level of expectations they bestow upon the Tigers. Go Tigers. So I understand that. And Florida's got high expectations as well. We're still not that far removed from the Tebow title years and Urban Meyer before he was done in the tactical shorts right around the Segway and ruining the Jacksonville Jaguars there at the NFL level, saying, get some to various pro players. That ain't going to work. Might be in college, never worked in the NFL. So if Kiffin is comfortable and he's making a boat ton of money right now, and he would get a boatload more money in an extension based on leverage play that he is content. And that's a question he's got to ask himself. He will not relocate. He's going to stay in Oxford. He may stay there for the rest of his coaching career. But if he is hungry and it feels like he is wanting more, he feels like there's going to be more resources available, whether it's in Gainesville or in Baton Rouge, he is going to jump. And he's going to be able to deal with the pressure. And I feel the leash should be a little bit longer than 6 games at LSU, but not by a whole lot. It might be like 8 or 10.
I would agree. I think that, like I said, if I'm given a percentage of the likelihood Lane Kiffin's at Ole Miss, I honestly think it's like 70%, maybe 75%. I really think it's a good chance. And I think it's a good chance because, I think Ole Miss is going to make an offer that is going to have a lot of college football teams going, you offered how much? How does Ole Miss have that? Well, the answer is SEC and Big Ten teams have that now, right? Like this is going to be.
They do. Yeah.
This is going to be another impact of the business side of college football moving forward. The unfortunate reality is that ACC, Big 12 teams, everybody who's not Big Ten and SEC teams, they're just not going to be able to make head coaching salary offers like even mid or bottom feeder teams in those 2 major conferences are. Ole Miss will be able to make a similar offer to Lane Kiffin that Indiana made to Curt Cignetti. And that's going to become the norm, not the exception, the way that Indiana felt like the exception. But I said at the time, guys, I don't think this is an exception. I think this is the new norm, and Indiana just happens to be the first school that decided to embrace it. And the one thing I would make the point of is much like Curt Cignetti at Indiana, who I think understands, like, I am the celebrity in this town. I am the focus. This is my town. I am now the guy in this area. That's Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. And granted, Ole Miss may not have the resources that Florida has or the resources that LSU has. But if he goes and he makes 1, 2, 3, 4 consecutive playoff runs, they will. They will, because they'll start getting all that extra money. If you make a run to the College Football National Championship, that's like $27 million that comes to you, not split up. It's just yours now. And if Ole Miss believes that keeping Lane Kiffin in the fold is how they are able to keep that going, they're investing all that money right back into football. They will put it all right back into equaling the facilities at those other schools. So, I know a lot of people are just working on the assumption Lane Kiffin's already gone. I would tell you pump the brakes a little bit. I would tell you to hold off a little bit.